Hey friend, Christine here with Rabbit Trails Homeschool, and I want to touch a topic that I get asked quite often actually, and that is how do you teach history to kids of different ages? How do I take my first grader and my fifth grader and teach history appropriately to both of them? And that is something that is completely doable, and a big reason why we make rabbit trails in the first place is because I have kids that are very spread out. I have an incoming kindergartner and a college freshman, okay? And so we are all over the place, and I want to, for as long as I possibly can, combine as many subjects as I can. And so we can easily teach history to our younger kids and to our kind of mid-older kids super simply. And even last year, my eighth grader was still doing the same topic as us and joining us on just a few things, even though he was doing his own history curriculum as well. So all of our history is actually written to be used from kindergarten through middle school, okay? And so you can absolutely do this with all of those different ages. And we even have, I'll make sure to link it for you guys, we have even a middle grade novel list for you for every one of our history units, because we want you guys to be able to have that sanity. We want you to be able to do less yourselves, but do more for your kids. And I'm going to explain exactly how that can look. So first of all, everyone absolutely can learn from the same story. And so you can take, I already have these out from a walkthrough I just did, you can take this picture book of Daniel Boone. Yes, you are going to get some things out of it when you're in first grade. Yes, you're going to get some things out of it when you're in sixth grade. Will they be the same? No, that is okay. But we can all learn from the same books. I learn from these books, guys, okay? So we can learn from these same books. And that's something that almost like brings us back to our roots. And it's something that we've really come away from in this country and around the world, really, is we used to have these one-room schoolhouses, right? We didn't have all of these separate grades. We would learn together, even in the old traditional public schools. They would be one-room schoolhouses. And so they would teach from the same story, and they would make it age appropriate for each child. And that's exactly what we do. And so you can take, for example, I have our early settlers. Again, I just did this walkthrough like 5 minutes ago. So I have all this stuff right here for me. And so we have this one for our Native Americans lesson inside of that. We have the older kids pick a tribe or a nation to do a research paper on them. But for younger kids, we're going to recommend they make a brochure or draw something you learned about that specific tribe or nation. And so this is the same assignment, but we are making it appropriate for our younger kiddos and we are making it appropriate for our older kiddos. So if you have just a first grader, fantastic. We are telling you what to do with just your first grader. And if you have just a sixth grader, we are telling you what to do exactly for that sixth grader. But for those of us who have multiple kids, we can do the same lesson for all of them. It's just going to look slightly different for those different ages and for those different abilities as well. And I think in the very next lesson, we have the same thing, that we are telling older kids to write out a whole battle plan, where we are telling younger kids to just maybe draw some weapons. And that's stuff, it's appropriate. It's about Vikings, okay? So we are able to do that super simply. We also can really focus on the conversations that we are having with our children as we are learning. So a younger kid may ask a simple question, but it might still get that older kid to think on that question, right? Because just like, it always makes me think of like the Bible story that Jesus is like, let the little children come to me. Because when we have that childlike faith, we're going to be asking those more simple questions. And as we grow mature, we're going to be asking more complex questions, right? But sometimes those childlike questions bring us back to that foundation and really make us think. And that can be true with history as well. So we're going to have the younger kid who may ask a simple question that makes the older kid think. Or on the flip side, we may have an older child explaining an idea that may kind of go beyond that little kid's ability to understand, but it's going to start to get those wheels churning. And so they really do feed off of each other. And they'll ask questions that I won't even think to ask or to ask of them. And they might bring a conversation in a whole different direction than I would ever think to do, because we're going to have different personalities in the room all learning together, right? And so that really goes into how older kids can help the younger ones. And I'm not talking about passing things off to your older child to teach for you, because that is something that I have seen many families when I was a younger homeschooler, and we were just starting out, that I would see some parents assign older kids, you're teaching this child, you're teaching this child, you're going to do this. And then you still have all of your work to do because I have to go and do whatever chores or whatever it is. And that was something that really struck me, that I said, I don't ever want to do that. And if you do that, that is fantastic. I'm glad that works for your family. That is not something I wanted to do with my family. I wanted to take that responsibility on myself and teach my children. However, when we have older siblings who might read aloud to their younger siblings, or they're simply just answering those questions that we were just talking about, or they were explaining their ideas, they are reinforcing their own understanding when they're doing those things. At that very same time, you have the younger sibling seeing what learning is going to look like as they get older. And I think that really benefits everybody, because again, they're going to be feeding off of each other. They're going to be learning from one another. This could also be a little bit of like leadership training with your older kids as well, because yes, we are not giving them an entire assignment to go and do with their younger siblings so we can go do something else. But maybe they are reading aloud to them while we're cooking dinner, or maybe they are doing that brochure with them because they want to, or because they think that that is a fun activity. And that's that your younger sibling is really, your younger child is really going to see that and kind of follow in those footsteps. And so it can be something really, really sweet. I also feel that multi-age learning makes homeschooling so much more enjoyable. I like spending time with my kids. I enjoy sitting down and reading books with them. I enjoy seeing those light bulbs go off, you know, like little cartoon light bulbs shining when they grasp a concept. But I just really love kind of like the culture that it creates in our home as well. It may be even stories that the older kids already know, but they're just getting reinforced. It can just be those amazing conversations that we have together. But I also appreciate from a mom's perspective, from a homeschool teacher's perspective, is it does save so much time. Why are we taking 8 hours? Like, that is why we don't go to public school. I don't want my kids to have to sit down for 8 hours to learn something that can be done in 3 hours. And so this just really kind of takes that like school at home and throws it out the window and turns it into homeschooling for me. Because my kids don't need separate histories to be able to learn. They're able to learn from the same thing. Same with our sciences. Half the time we're doing language arts together. It can be done, and it can be beautiful, and it can be very beneficial to everyone involved. And sometimes it just takes, you know, having those slightly different assignments on the same thing to make it be appropriate. But that's probably the biggest, I guess, concern that most parents have is, will it be enough for my big kids? Will it be too much for my little kids? How do I make it work for both? And I actually feel like instead of that being a concern, I feel like that's the biggest benefit to homeschooling in this way, is that it absolutely is appropriate for both of them. And it's just creates something so beautiful that a classroom can't even replicate it. Yeah, I love it. It just makes my heart happy. And history is my favorite subject. And so I love talking about history. And so that's what it gets me so giddy, is because I'm sharing these things with my kids. And I did not always love history. I used to hate it. If you've been following me, you know that. I used to absolutely hate history. It was my least favorite subject, and now it's my absolute favorite. And a big reason why is because of these guys. And it just has really opened up a whole new world for me, and it's opened up a whole new world for my kids. And I hope that it does the same for you guys as well. If you have any questions about teaching history or any other subject to multiple ages, please drop them down in the comments. I would love to chat with you about it. But otherwise, I think I've given you all the main points of why I love multi-age learning and why I love combining ages to teach history specifically. So thank you for joining me, and I hope that we continue this conversation down in the comments. So I'll see you guys later.